The Simpsons have been said to predict everything, but what I'm about to tell you isn't some funny coincidence. It felt like we stepped right into one of their darkest predictions, and it started the second we opened the Labubu game. Right away, nothing looked normal. The title screen didn't look polished like a regular game menu. It was grainy, glitching like it had been copied 1,000 times onto an old VHS tape. The colors bled into each other, the audio warbled like it was underwater, and the background hissed like static. I remember leaning back in my chair thinking, okay, who designed this thing? This feels cursed. My friend chuckled nervously, but the way his eyes stayed glued to the screen told me he was unsettled too. We hit start, and for a moment the screen went completely black. No loading bar, no music, just silence. Then out of nowhere, Labubu appeared in the corner of the room. No jump scare, no dramatic sound, just standing there. That was somehow worse. Its wide cartoon eyes stared directly at us, following us no matter where we looked on the screen. It didn't blink, it didn't move, it just watched. I could feel my stomach tighten. My friend tried to brush it off, saying, "He's just a plush toy, bro, relax." But the longer we sat there, the less it felt like a joke. We started moving around in-game, trying to explore, but everything about the movement was wrong. Each step echoed like a groaning floorboard. At first, it was faint, but with every step we took, the sound grew louder, heavier, like someone or something was walking right behind us. I froze, controller in hand, whispering, "Wait, do you hear that?" My friend nodded silently. Neither of us wanted to admit how unsettled we were, but the air in the room felt heavier, colder, like the game wasn't staying inside the screen. Then, just as suddenly as the footsteps had started, every sound cut out. The creaks, the faint hum, even the static hiss gone. The silence was so thick I swear I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. We both leaned closer to the screen, waiting for something to happen. And then it did, a voice, not loud, not clear, but distorted, like it had been buried under layers of static. You knew this already. I felt a chill crawl straight up my spine. My friend's jaw dropped, and for a second neither of us spoke. We just stared at the screen where Labubu still stood in the corner, still staring, still smiling, as if it was waiting for our reaction. My friend finally broke the silence, whispering, "Dude, what does that mean? You knew this already." I wanted to laugh it off, to say it was just part of the game, but deep down I couldn't shake the feeling that the voice wasn't talking about the character, it was talking to us. That was only the beginning, but already my heart was racing. Because if a simple stuffed creature could make me feel this uneasy, I knew something darker was hiding in that game. And the worst part. We were about to find it. We tried to shake it off, telling ourselves it was just some weird design choice, but the game wasn't letting us breathe. The second we moved deeper into the room, Labubu shifted, not walked, not animated, just teleported. One flicker, and suddenly it was standing in the middle of the room, a few steps closer. My chest tightened instantly. My friend blurted out, "Nah, nope, I don't like that." We both laughed nervously, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that makes you feel better. It was the kind that cracks under pressure. We turned the camera view toward the door, thinking maybe we could escape. The door creaked open with a slow groan, like it hadn't been used in years, and beyond it was a hallway that stretched way too far. The walls twisted, bending slightly, almost like the game's geometry was wrong. It didn't feel like a hallway, it felt like a tunnel leading nowhere. As we stepped forward, the air in-game grew thicker. The sound of our footsteps echoed unnaturally, like they were bouncing off walls much closer than what we were seeing. My heart started racing again. I whispered, "Something's not right here." Every few steps, the screen would glitch just for a fraction of a second, and in that split second, Labubu's face would appear close up, distorted. Its grin stretched wider than it should have been. Then it would vanish, replaced by the hallway again. We froze the first time it happened, but when it happened again and again and again, I could feel panic building inside me. My friend tried to joke, at least he's photogenic, but his voice cracked halfway through. He wasn't fooling anyone. The deeper we walked, the darker the hallway grew. At one point, the flickering lights stopped completely and all we could see was the faint outline of our character in the dark. That's when we heard it, a faint giggle, high pitched, childlike, but warped, like it was being played backwards on an old cassette. It echoed from behind us. We spun the camera around nothing, just endless black. My stomach twisted as the giggle grew louder, bouncing from left to right through the headphones, circling us like something invisible was running around just out of sight. Then, as if the game was taunting us, text appeared across the top of the screen. He likes when you're scared. My friend dropped the controller onto his lap and just stared at me wide-eyed. "This is messed up, man," he whispered. I picked the controller back up, hands shaking, and tried moving forward, but now the character's movement was sluggish, like the game itself didn't want us to leave. And then the lights flickered back on, and there he was, Labubu, not far off, not in the corner anymore, but right in front of us, inches away, his head tilted slightly to the side, eyes unblinking, smile frozen like it knew exactly how much it terrified us. I swear, for a second, the screen pulsed, like the image was breathing. We didn't move, we couldn't. Then, without any animation, his jaw unhinged just a little too wide, and that broken giggle erupted again, louder this time, blasting through the speakers. I yanked my headphones off, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. My friend covered his face with his hands, muttering, "Nope, nope, nope, this isn't normal." But it was too late. The game had us. We couldn't stop. We couldn't look away. And just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, the screen glitched again, and Labubu whispered something that sent chills down my spine. It was just one word, soft but clear enough to make my blood run cold. Simpsons. We froze. My friend looked at me like he had just seen a ghost, and in that moment I realized this game wasn't random. It wasn't just trying to scare us. It was pointing us towards something that connected directly to The Simpsons. And that was the moment everything started spiraling out of control. My friend grabbed his phone immediately, his hands trembling as he scrolled like a man possessed. I asked him what he was doing, and he whispered, "Dude, I swear I've seen that thing before. On The Simpsons." I laughed nervously, trying to break the tension, but the look on his face wasn't joking. His eyes were wide, his voice shaky. He wasn't making it up. He pulled up a screenshot from some old, grainy Simpsons episode, one of those blink and you miss it background gags. And I'll never forget what I saw. There it was, hidden in the corner of a scene, almost like a doodle. A creature with big round eyes, a jagged grin, and stubby little limbs that looked way too much like Labubu. The colors were faded, sure, but the resemblance was undeniable. My stomach dropped. I whispered, That's the same thing. That's him." Before I could even process it, the game reacted, as if it knew what we were looking at. The screen glitched, showing us distorted flashes of Simpsons style backgrounds, yellow walls, and warped characters, their faces melting into static. And then Labubu's voice rang out again, clearer this time. They knew, they always knew. We sat frozen. My friend looked at me and said, "Bro, this isn't random. This isn't just a game." And honestly, I believed him. Because how else could you explain it? A creepy game character tied to a cartoon episode that aired decades ago. It didn't make sense. Then, something even stranger happened. The hallway we were stuck in shifted. The wallpaper peeled away, morphing into bright yellow paint. The floor turned into that familiar green carpet, and the background morphed until it looked exactly like The Simpsons' living room. Except it wasn't cheerful. The colors were faded, warped, like we were trapped in a nightmare version of the set. The couch was torn. The picture on the wall hung sideways, and in the corner, you guessed it, Labubu, staring silently. I whispered, "This feels wrong. It feels like we're not supposed to see this." My friend nodded quickly, gripping his phone tighter. He scrolled further through the fan forums, and sure enough, there were old threads, people pointing out the same weird creature in Simpsons backgrounds, wondering what it was, why it was there. Some claimed it was just a lazy sketch. Others swore it was a hidden Easter egg. But now it felt like something darker. Like this thing had been waiting for us to notice. The game wasn't stopping, though. Text crawled across the screen in jagged, blood-red letters. Truth cannot be erased. And at that exact moment, our character was forced to move on its own. The controls locked up, the camera turned by itself, and we were dragged deeper into this warped, Simpsons-like version of Springfield. Only it wasn't Springfield. The houses were distorted, windows boarded up, the sky a static, filled gray. Every few steps, we'd see flashes of Labubu's grin plastered on billboards, hiding behind curtains, even reflected in puddles on the ground. And then the countdown appeared, out of nowhere. Big, bold, glowing numbers burned into the top of the screen. 0300. 3 minutes, that's all it gave us. My friend's jaw dropped. Bro, what happens when it hits 0? I didn't answer because, honestly, I didn't want to know. All I could do was grip the controller tighter, my palms sweaty, my heart hammering in my chest. Every instinct told me we weren't playing anymore, we were being tested, watched, and if the Simpsons really had predicted Labubu decades ago, what else had they predicted that we hadn't seen yet? The numbers glowed bright at the top of the screen. 3 minutes, just 3 minutes. At first, we thought maybe it was a challenge timer, survive until it ends, or beat a level before time runs out, but the way the numbers flickered, almost like they were alive, made me feel like it wasn't a game mechanic. It was a warning. The screen darkened, the walls of the distorted Springfield flickering between bright yellow cartoon paint and something rotten, blackened like mold spreading across the textures. Every second that ticked down, Labubu twitched closer, not walking, not animated, just appearing, a little nearer each time the screen glitched. First he was at the end of the street, then halfway down the block, then suddenly standing right behind a fence, his fingers curling around the wood like he was testing it, waiting to slip through. The timer dropped 02:45, 02:30. Each tick felt slower, heavier, like the seconds stretched on forever. The controller vibrated rhythmically, thump, 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 not random shakes, but perfectly timed to my heartbeat. My palms were slick with sweat. My friend leaned in close, whispering, "Dude, this feels real. I don't like this." His voice cracked. I didn't say anything, because I didn't want him to know I was just as scared, maybe more. Then the soundscape started changing. A low hum filled the room, deep and heavy, vibrating in my chest, and beneath it a faint ticking, not from the game but from somewhere behind the speakers, a sharp, metronome-like click. My eyes darted around our actual room as if maybe the sound was coming from somewhere else, but it wasn't. It was synced with the countdown. The game was bleeding into reality. At 0200, the camera jerked violently, spinning on its own until it locked onto a window. The glass was cracked, and through it we saw a distorted reflection of our character, except the reflection wasn't quite right. The smile was too wide, eyes too hollow, the posture too stiff, and standing next to the reflection, just faint enough to blend in, was Labubu. He didn't move, he just stood there, grinning like he was already inside. Already waiting. The hum grew louder, then warped into a distorted voice. It wasn't speaking clearly at first, just garbled nonsense. But as the timer dropped closer to 01:30, the words sharpened. Truth cannot be hidden. Truth cannot be hidden. Over and over, like a mantra, the voice hammered the phrase into our heads. My friend covered his ears, shouting, "Make it stop. Please, make it stop." I gripped the controller tighter, but no buttons worked. The pause screen wouldn't open. We were locked in. At 01:00, the world around us started collapsing. Houses melted into static, trees twisted into black shapes, and the sky bled red. The only thing clear, the only thing untouched, was Labubu. He stood dead center in the street now, closer than ever. His eyes, unblinking, felt like they were drilling into us through the screen. And then something happened that made my stomach drop even further. The game camera zoomed in on him, closer and closer. until all we could see was his face. His mouth twitched, stretching slowly, impossibly wide, until it looked more like a gash than a smile. And then he spoke. But it wasn't in the distorted, cartoonish tone we'd been hearing before. It was calm, cold, almost human. It's already too late. The timer hit 00:30. My friend was shaking his head violently, muttering, "Nope, nope, we're done, we're done." But I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen. Something about those last 30 seconds felt final, like we were about to see something we weren't supposed to. The hum reached a deafening pitch. The controller rattled violently in my hands, and the voice returned, layering over itself in dozens of tones. "He's closer than you think. He's closer than you think. 00:10. The numbers glowed blood red. The whole screen shook violently, and Labubu stepped forward. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. With each step, the world behind him cracked like glass shattering. 00:05. The audio cut out completely. Silence. Just numbers counting down. 00:03. Labubu's face filled the screen, his grin stretching impossibly. 00:01. The numbers froze, and then everything stopped. The screen went black. My friend gasped, clutching the controller, whispering, "That's it. Did we win?" But before I could answer, the black screen flickered once more, and something appeared that made my blood run cold. It wasn't game footage anymore. It was us, our own faces, staring back through the webcam, and we weren't even recording with it. For a moment, we just sat there in disbelief. The game had switched to our own webcam feed, crystal clear, no delay. It was showing us sitting in the exact room we were in, lit only by the glow of the monitor. My friend leaned back slowly, whispering, "Bro, how is it even using the camera? We didn't give it permission." His voice cracked on the last word, and I couldn't even answer. My throat was dry, my chest felt like it was caving in. We both stared at the screen, frozen, waiting for something to happen. And then the feed glitched. For half a second, it wasn't us anymore. It was a warped version of us. Same room, same angle, but our faces were stretched, hollow-eyed, smiling in ways our mouths couldn't bend. Then the real feed came back, showing our actual terrified selves. Then another glitch. Labubu appeared sitting between us on the couch. Just for a second, then gone. The message appeared across the bottom of the screen in jagged white letters. "He's always been here." My stomach turned. My friend whispered, "What does that mean? Here, like here with us." I shook my head, but the truth is, I felt it too. That icy weight in the air, the way the shadows in the room seemed to stretch unnaturally. It didn't feel like the game anymore. It felt like Labubu had crossed over. The feed kept shifting. 1 second we were staring at ourselves. The next it was cycling through distorted Simpsons clips. I recognized the couch scene, the living room, the kitchen, all warped. Characters' faces melted into static, their eyes replaced with hollow black voids. Then back to us again. The rapid flickering made my head spin, and the longer I stared, the more wrong it all felt. Then Labubu's voice cut through the distortion, not loud, not cartoonish, calm, steady, chilling. "You saw me before. You laughed, you forgot, but I was always watching." I swear my blood went cold, because in that moment I remembered something. A weird doodle I'd seen years ago online, a so-called Simpsons Easter egg people joked about. I had laughed it off at the time, never thinking about it again. But now it felt like that stupid little doodle was staring at me through the screen, reminding me that I'd already seen it and ignored it. My friend shouted, "Shut it off, just shut it off." He reached for the power button, but the second his hand touched the tower, the webcam feed warped again. This time, it showed him standing behind himself, same clothes, same expression, except the version behind him was smiling, wide and unnatural. My friend yanked his hand back like he'd been burned, eyes wide with terror. "That wasn't me, that wasn't me." The words across the screen shifted, pulsing like they were alive. "Truth cannot be hidden." I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to get out of the room, but my body wouldn't move. I sat there, locked in place, watching as the feed zoomed closer to our faces, inch by inch, until all I could see were our eyes wide, shaking, full of fear. Then it cut to black. We sat in silence, listening to the whir of the PC fans. Nothing, just emptiness, and for a second I thought maybe it was over. But then, from the speakers, barely audible, came a whisper so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. "He's still here." I felt every hair on my arms stand on end. My friend's breathing turned shallow, panicked. He muttered, "I'm done, I'm done, I'm done," rocking back and forth in his chair. But deep down we both knew the game wasn't finished with us yet. And what happened next, that's where everything went wrong.